recently discovered this activist named Dick Gregory. He's also a comedian. He's super funny, and I wanted to introduce any of you who may not have heard of him to him. He's brilliant, and he really speaks the truth in a unique way. So, you hear me? Huh? Let's get started. So, Dick Gregory is this black man who's so outspoken and honest about stuff he's lived through, the information he knows, and how us as human society today should be acting and going forward. And he gives it to you in such a blunt, straightforward way. You don't even have time to challenge or ask him questions because he's forcing you to come along with him. Like, if you don't want to believe the truth, he'll just leave you in the dust, man. Like, he has such a brash way of dealing with this stuff that I really appreciate it, because it really does help cut through all of the bullshit, you know, when you're trying to get through the fog and reach the truth. Like, in any of these things, I'm not sure if any of you guys investigate things. I tend to get involved heavily into things that happened and I lived through, but there was never much information about, or we as a people tried to move on from them as quickly as possible, like 9/11 or the JFK assassination or the Oklahoma City bombing. Like, it's weird to me that we don't talk about these events anymore. They're some of the major events that happened within this last century. That's times that our parents were alive, we were alive. Kids are going to be born into this and not even know about them. We have to pass these stories down. So I find it weird when the society wants to move on, because I'm like, this is our times, right? Like, these are the history book events that are going to be told to our future generations. Why wouldn't we speak on them? I'm not huge into censorship or the idea of letting time heal the wound, because usually right after the event is when it's fresh in everybody's head and when people are going to talk about it with the most information to share. So I think it's really weird how we work collectively together to kind of null out the information. But I do thank people like Dick Gregory who have the courage to step forward and just speak the truth, because he talks about how there have been attempts on his life, and there's, he showed a newspaper article that ran a story that said Dick Gregory to be murdered by the government, basically. Like, it's really scary that this stuff happens and now we're hearing about it more and more. Like, I know it's commonplace to debunk conspiracy theorists, but people need to understand a conspiracy is just more than one person conspiring to do something. So yes, it's a conspiracy. A conspiracy did take place. And then my theory is my ideas on it, my things I want to share in an open forum, not be silenced. It's crazy to me that, the information that comes out about these events is often scoffed, or whatever the media says about it, we run with. And it's like, we already know the media is bought and paid for. We know all four major media outlets, CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox, are all owned by one family. I mean, newspapers and radio stations, it's all owned. Clear Channel, like, it's all owned by one family. And you have to understand that the information you're taking in comes from one source, and that one source has an agenda. So when you start to get information from other things, like Dick Gregory, and you're hearing his first-hand accounts when he marched in Selma, him talking about how Selma was not for the right for the black vote, that it had nothing to do with it. It was about the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson, and that's what it's truly about. It was the revolt over that. So it's weird how we whitewash history, and if we let it go long enough, then we won't have people who were there to account for it. So that's important. I mean, we're finding out information that's surfacing now, which I find odd, about the Titanic and how that was a fraud and a cover-up for JP Morgan, and I want to do a video on that because I read about it and it's fucking fascinating. Mind fuck. But Dick Gregory is introducing me to all sorts of things: the JFK assassination, Michael Jackson's death, Michael Jordan's father's death, Bill Cosby's entire takedown. I mean, Dick Gregory speaks on all of these things in such an emphatic way, it's really hard to not believe him. But I'm not trying to tell anybody what to believe. All I'm saying is challenge your beliefs. Let other ideas and people's perspectives on events that they lived through as well flow through you. Like, that's the biggest challenge I think humanity has, especially right now during this political correctness revolution that America seems to be stuck in. However, we do need to start thinking about how it's important to have conversation, and conversation doesn't mean getting everybody to agree with you. It means hearing and talking. So we need to come together and just realize that us trying to force our beliefs or our lifestyle choices onto others is just not working. There's too much pushback. We don't all agree. So when Dick Gregory gives you information that's hard for you to swallow because you've been raised to believe something else and it's challenging your safety and security, allow your body to go through that. Feel the tension, feel your body clamp up, and feel your mouth get dry, and feel it hard to swallow, feel your heart start to palpitate, and realize this is your body reacting to the truth. You've suppressed it for so long. These reactions are normal, and every human goes through them because you're going to find something that rocks you to your core. I mean, many people still believe that 9/11 is the official story we were given, and that it's just not true. It was an inside job, and there's a lot of elitists who profited off of that event within this country, and people need to wake up to that fact. Even if it's hard to hear, you need to understand the truth doesn't care if you're comfortable with it. And I think it's important that we talk about that more often. The willingness to be uncomfortable, and how we as a society, if we'd allow that, we could get much deeper with these issues of abortion or systemic racism or ageism. Like, these are problems that exist within our culture, but we don't talk about them because they make us uncomfortable. And that's why I love Dick Gregory, because he forces you into the conversation. He doesn't give a fuck if you're uncomfortable. He does not care. I also really love his enthusiasm for what he's telling you by using tons of expletives. Like, he is just not made for children, and that's what I appreciate about him. I mean, every other word out of his mouth is fucking cracker or nigga. Like, he's so insanely captivating because he really draws you in. He's passionate about what he's telling you because he understands that whether you believe or not, that's for you to decide. But if you choose not to, you're being ignorant. And we've talked about how ignorant is not nescient. Nescient is when you don't have the information, you can't know better. But ignorant is when you have it and you're choosing to ignore it. And I like people like Dick because he really makes you unable to claim nescience. Like, I think we need more people like that. Spit it in your face and let you digest it when you're ready. Honestly, because that's your battle. That's how you get out of the matrix, is when you start to be willing to face the truth at no matter the cost. You need to be willing to go through that. Yes, it's hard, and yes, you're going to cry, and it's a battle, and it sucks. It sucks, and especially when you learn we've been lied to our whole life, it's fucking weird. And then Dick Gregory does a really cool thing about kind of explaining, especially to people like me who I've had a really hard time trying to figure out what white privilege is. Like, if I do believe it exists, and I was so confused by it, and I'm like, well, I've grown up poor, so I don't know it. And then, we'd get in conversations and people would be like, well, you know it because you are privileged to be white. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's true, because I don't fear driving down, a highway like maybe a black man or woman would, for reasons that we obviously see happening daily, which is scary and it's sad. And, my boyfriend and I walk the streets just smoking weed freely. I mean, it is legal in Portland. You're still not supposed to do it recreationally in public, but call me a rebel, right? Just kidding. No, come to Portland and smoke weed freely in public. I encourage that, actually. But I do that and nobody ever accosts us. But if I were black, maybe I'd think twice. And that's something white people need to talk about, because we do need to realize our privilege. But I want to go deeper than privilege and talk about what Dick Gregory talks about, because he speaks above white privilege and talks about white supremacy, which makes more sense to me, because white supremacy means more everything is going to work the way that white people want it to work. But he also describes white people as not everybody with fair skin. Like, he wouldn't consider me white. He wouldn't consider you white who's watching, I'm fairly certain, because he's talking about people who can call the stock market and change the direction of finance in this country. Like, you have to have billions of dollars. The elite. Like, that's who he's talking about. People who make change. People who control law. But that's another thing. White people don't talk about it. We think we're all white. We think all all white people are created equally because we're too stupid to wake up and realize that how our brothers of the same skin have treated people around this entire globe for the last century, we need to take responsibility for because we aren't speaking up against it. And until we do in the masses, and we're really heard in showing support and solidarity to our black brothers and sisters, along with people of every ethnicity around the globe, we need to unite like that. We need to really come together in solidarity against corporate America, which is the white businessman. It is the straight, neo-masculine white businessman that is in control of the entire world. And that's the elite class. I mean, my God, Dick Gregory even talks about how the white man doesn't even care about the white woman. He talks about how the women rode on the ships with him with the slaves underneath, and yet the women didn't have the right to vote. Women were getting beat. You know, like, this is something that he really forces you to think about. You may think that you benefit because of the color of your skin. However, when the color of your skin is no longer the reason they come after people, but now it moves to classism or, you know, your social status, you then could be the new black. And that's something that I think white people need to have a conversation about more often, because a lot of the white people, especially in America, are not white people. And that's what Dick Gregory wants you to realize. And I think it's brilliant. I mean, nobody should be ashamed of their skin color. And that's not what he's talking about. And that's not what I'd promote either. What you should realize are the things in the world today that happen to you because of people with your skin color, and how we individually can act right now to change it for future generations, because we don't have to keep perpetuating systemic racism. Like, it's insanity. We don't need to treat people any differently based on anything. No disabilities, no sexual orientation, no race, no age, no heights, nothing. Like, this is ridiculous, and we need to start progressing by moving forward and thinking about other things to argue about, things that would actually progress us. And I'm telling you, take some time and really look into Dick Gregory. He will challenge your thoughts, and I'm guaranteeing you he will talk on some subject that you're fascinated by. He has so many 10 to 15 minute clips here on YouTube. He talks about everything from politics to the food. He talks Monsanto. He talks government. Like, it's really fascinating. He's a brilliant guy. So this is my video encouraging you to check him out, because I wouldn't promote somebody who didn't really hit me somewhere where I had to stop and think like, whoa, he's challenging my beliefs. And I think that's brilliant. And I want to promote people like that. So thank you, Dick Gregory. But his response, honestly, to me would probably be like, I don't fucking care, huh? You hear me? I just love this man. Honestly, check him out. If for anything else, just to have a laugh, because he is really brilliant with timing and the way he talks to people. Anyway, take care of yourself today. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.